Hey, what's up, guys? So, Kane here, going to be playing some 10-second Ninja X. Currently a preview build on Xbox One, and I'm joined today by Dan Pearce, and we are going to be chatting about the
Hey,
game.
how's it going?
So, I'm going to let him introduce himself real quick. No, you're good, dude.
Yeah, so I'm Dan Pearce. I'm game director at Full Circle Interactive. So we made this game. It's a sequel to 10 Second Ninja 1, which came out just on Steam about 2 years ago. So this game's quite a bit bigger. It's a lot more polished, and it's going to be coming to Xbox on July 19th. So I'm quite excited.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I was just like listening to you go over that, and I accidentally found another secret
The
area.
game's just chock full of it. I mean,
Yeah, it
you
seems
can't
like
lose
it,
the
because
secret
like
areas.
I have yet to find one, and now just since I called you on Skype, I found two. So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I'm like a
Just
lucky
super
charm.
random. So yeah, exactly. If you guys ever can't find a
Yeah,
secret
you just call
area,
me up.
just call him up on Skype. He'll help you out. But anyways, so I saw again, like you said, this was a follow-up to 10 Second Ninja, which I believe had like 40 levels, and it was on Steam only. So this is gonna be console, which is gonna be awesome in my opinion, because that's where I like to play my games typically.
Yeah.
But it seems like it was like almost built for controller. Like I even noticed on your Steam description page, you listed controller before keyboard. Like it just feels really good on here.
Yeah.
So just figured I'd say that.
No, I'm glad you think so. I mean, the first game sort of launched at a kind of weird time where there's only a few indies. Like, there's this kind of new wave of indies making games kind of around like 2012, 2013. And it was only when the first game launched that you started seeing more of those indies putting stuff on consoles. Um, and 10 Second Ninja was like, I mean, you're totally right. It was always like for consoles. Which is why it's kind of embarrassing that it's taken us 4 years to actually accomplish that. Um,
Well, that's interesting you brought that up because I think, at least in my perspective, just from the developers I've talked to, that it seems to be easier now than it was when like Microsoft and Sony were more of a closed ecosystem
yeah,
with the 360 and the PS3.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a lot more open now. It's definitely a lot more accessible. I have a feeling it's going to get a bit less accessible over the next sort of year or so. I think there's a big push to get indies on consoles just until kind of this new console generation found its footing. Just so there was definitely stuff there for people to buy, um,
Yeah.
which was great for us. We're sort of hoping we can stay in their good books. But yeah, I mean it was even when we launched the first game, like that was back when launching a game on Steam was still kind of a novelty. In the 2 years since, it's suddenly blown wide open, and everyone's got their game on Steam. um, which is why it was sort of important for us to partner with a publisher like Digital, who's our current publisher. The first game was published with a different company. So it's important that we were with Curve Digital. We have a publisher who get console development, they get console publishing. Um, because more people are making games for consoles, and we need to make sure that we appear with people who actually like can make us stand out and like really push the game and
Yeah,
have faith in it.
it seems in particular with like British game development, they have some pretty big ones. Like I know that Curve did Thomas Was Alone, the port for Xbox.
Yeah, they did.
So that to me is
the Swindle.
one that I just remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's at least 6 or 7 I can think of that were really high quality games.
Yeah, I mean, or like, it's one of the reasons we went with them, right? Like, they've got such a good pedigree. We were mostly surprised that they wanted to work with us.
It's got to be a
Oh,
good
yeah, it
feeling
was-
when you're like, I want these guys, but they actually wanted you
Yeah, it
too.
was incredibly flattering. I mean, so we'd already been talking with PlayStation about bringing 10 Second Ninja to PlayStation in some form, and I'd sent an email out to Curve like a couple weeks before a big barbecue that Sony were throwing for all of their PlayStation developers. And Simon from Curve was there, and I remember like I was sort of like nervous the whole evening about like whether whether like he was going to ignore me or what was going on or whatever. But he was really sweet, and he sort of came up to me towards the end of the night. And I was like, okay, I really want to talk about this. I'm really, really excited. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, it's not just like, yeah, okay, like let's have a conversation. Like, Curve were excited about 10-second indirects. That was really affirming. And working with them since has been great. Like, I've really, really enjoyed working with Curve.
That's awesome. So, where did the idea for this game come about? Like you said, it came out 2 years ago on Steam, but where did it originally come from? Like, where did you decide to make a 10-second kind of almost, I guess, like very speedrunny at times, focused platformer? It's really fun.
A lot of it came from sort of just playing a lot of platformers. Around the time when I was working on it, I mean, I'm 22 years old now, but when I started working on the first game, I was sort of 18, and I was just finishing up school. So I was, instead of actually working, I was sitting in the back of class playing games on my iPhone. I was playing a lot of platformers, and I really quite liked that kind of focused style of platformer. And I kept noticing a mechanic sort of popping up in a lot of the different games that I was playing, where every single level would have like an extra bonus time constraint, where it's like, if you finish the level in this time, you get like an extra reward or something. And it was only when I was playing through these games, I was like, when I'm playing with this constraint, the game's way more fun, but none of the games feel like they're actually designed for it. And I was finding that kind of frustrating, because it was like, just that time constraint was getting me to think about the mechanics in a way more focused way, a way more precise way, where suddenly, like, you realise that, like, if you jump at the one too many times, then you've kind of screwed up a whole run of a level for yourself. And, like, that's really interesting, because suddenly it takes games away from being these kind of reactive things, where you're kind of, like, constantly trying to adapt to different situations, and puts it more in a kind of puzzly perspective.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely how it feels to me, because like, I'm doing terrible on stream, but I actually did get some of these levels like pretty flawlessly, where I have the top times on them, and like, it almost feels like, it's a choreographed ballet when you actually do it right, versus like, just kind of running around, because it feels like there is a clear like answer almost. Like, if you do this, you will get a really fast time.
Yeah, but like, instead of it being kind of like abstract puzzles, where it's sort of like, move this block here and then it opens up a thing here or whatever, it's or kind of Tetris style puzzles, or like Sudoku or something. It sort of takes these sort of platformer mechanics that you're quite familiar with, and it just puts them in a context that turns them into puzzle mechanics. And that was really interesting to me. I thought that was like when I first started prototyping it, that was what really, really appealed to me, and suddenly designing levels for that was really, really fun. You can design levels where anything slower than the fastest route possible can feel a little bit odd, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, if you're getting a route that gets you just like 1 star or 2 stars, it should feel a tiny bit uncomfortable. But when you're running through a level and you're going the 3-star route, the level's designed in such a way where you're not bumping your head against anything, you're not like slamming into a wall or anything awkward like that. Like, you're doing these very precise moments and you're kind of flowing through it. And the feeling of that is very different from when you're first starting a level and just kind of fumbling your way through.
No, and it's funny, because as you said that, I finally actually did it right and got a 3-star run, and it's just like, it looks much more natural, which is, and Hollow Drone, I agree with you, man. It is pretty fun. I've been enjoying it. I've been playing for about a couple hours today. Yeah, I know, Moist. Look at me 3-starring like a boss. I'm never gonna do it again.
Hollow Drone. I think Hollow Drone follows me on Twitter. I think I follow Hollow Drone on Twitter.
I wouldn't be surprised.
He gets around. He's always talking smack. Always talking smack. I find it quite entertaining. But like, it's cool. Like, it means that each level kind of has its own little arc to it, where you have this nice sort of 3-act structure, where it's like playing it the first time you're getting 1 star, okay. Playing it second time, oh, you got 2 stars. Like you're getting a bit more of a handle on you're starting to understand how this kind of Rube Goldberg machine of a level is all tying together. And then the 3-star is when you understand the route and you're doing really, really well at pushing all the buttons the right time and kind of having these cool runs.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you just said, like it's the 3-star is like you get the route and you've got the mechanics down. Like I've gotten a couple 2s where I'm like, I know I'm doing it right. I'm not pressing it like perfectly.
And also the nice thing is you only have to do a level really well one time. Like you just have to be perfect once for about 5 seconds, and that's enough. You can never have to do that level ever again.
Yeah, I was really excited when I saw there was no like beat the entire game without dying once or something, because I'm very accident prone, and that's why I like the appeal of shorter kind of games like this, where it's like, okay, I just got to do the one level. It's going to be, in this case 10 seconds. In some other games similar to this, it might be, like 30 to a minute. But it's like I don't have to be perfect for forever.
Exactly.
Because I know I can't.
Like, you know what? Like there are people who are into that kind of challenge. Like there's definitely it's been interesting to design the game because different people are kind of acclimatized to different difficulties when it comes to platformers. Like the story is kind of paced in such a way that you should be able to get to the end of 10-second Ninja X's story if you're kind of okay or not great at platformers. But it will take you a while, but like you will do it. It's achievable and you'll get there. If you're quite good at the game, then the game turns into more of a game about getting 3 stars throughout the whole game, and it's less about the story. But we found that it's only like 1% of people. There's 1% of people like the pain of our existence, where they're like just amazing out the gate at all the levels.
Yeah.
So for them, we do have some sort of extra side modes where it's like, okay, here's an area of the game. You can do all the levels back to back, and you're given a grade at the end. It's like,
is that marathon mode?
So it's like if you want the absolute best grade possible, like if you really want to push for like the tippy top, absolute amazing grade, that's there for you. But it's non-essential, and it's sort of tucked away at the back.
See, I like that because I found it, and I was just like, I assumed when I looked it up, I'm like, okay, so this is going to be the mode that I can't do, because I'm not going to be good enough at it. But
you know what, like, it's this thing where we deliberately structured in such a way where it's like, if that's not your thing, it's like, absolutely fine. There is other stuff for you to do, like the 3 stars, most people should be able to do that. You should, like, when you finish the story, like, this isn't spoilers or anything, but like, you can like change character costumes and stuff like that, and like unlocking these different characters requires different parameters. So suddenly it's like, okay, 3-star a whole area, and then that can be your focus. Or I've forgotten what some of the other parameters are for unlocking costumes. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I actually just found the costume thing as well when I was looking over at the marathon mode, and I don't have any unlocked yet, so I can't help you.
But it's just that thing where it's like, if you're into the game and you want to keep playing it, no matter your skill level, there should be something at all times to kind of keep you going forwards.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool that you have ways to engage people of varying different skills.
Yeah, and also like not doing it in a handholdy way, like not doing it where it's like, okay, like if you pay us $3, then the level's finished for you in 3 stars. Like, we don't want to do anything like that, or anything that was kind of that would cripple the game, or and especially nothing that would put people who were sort of naturally good at the game in a position where they didn't want to try hard.
Yeah.
Like we've got hint tokens in the game that you can unlock by playing a side minigame, and that minigame gets progressively harder the more times you do it. So
that's cool.
So it's like,
I tried it earlier, and it was like almost like that, find the bean underneath a cup thing. It's just, there was a little more than 3 though, but it wasn't too
but
bad.
even that's like we just make that a bit more complex and a bit faster each time. So by the time it gets to the point where you've had like 20 hints, actually unlocking those hints becomes harder than just looking at the levels and thinking strategically about it. And hopefully by using those hints, those players who didn't quite get it at first will be a bit more adjusted to looking at levels and thinking about how they work and reacting accordingly.
I actually didn't know this until right now. I didn't realize I could go back and replay my Ghost for like levels I actually have gotten 3 stars on.
Yeah.
So that's actually kind of cool too. Is there something for that with leaderboards eventually? Like, I know that was on the list of things that were not completely done. Is there going to be the ability to go look at some of the top times that other people have done, or are you just using the hint system?
For the moment, we're just using the hint system for that. It's something that I would like to do further down the line. I think we'd probably patch it in. But I can't guarantee it yet. A lot of it's reliant on how different platforms handle integrated leaderboard support. And how
makes
far
sense.
We can push it in. Like, storing ghosts requires quite a lot of data, so we might have to, we were sort of looking at that in the past few months, and sort of trying to figure out if we'd need a sort of bespoke solution for that, and we end up just getting pressed too hard for time and going like, you know what, like maybe later.
It'd be cool, but
like, if we put this in, it's gonna massively cripple other areas of the game. And
yeah, exactly. Something else has to go if you add it, which makes sense.
But it's definitely something we want to look at going forwards. And it's obviously a game that we want to kind of keep tweaking. Like, obviously things like movement and things will stay the same, and level designs will stay the same. Just because you start changing that, and suddenly you have to start wiping leaderboards, and no one enjoys that. People really don't like that. And understandably so. But we want to kind of keep polishing up, and if we can add features here and there, or if the game comes out and people say like, oh hey, like if you added in this visual tweak, something would be clearer for me or whatever. We're quite keen on supporting that and sort of continuing to improve the game post-launch.
Awesome. And what's up, Slard? How you doing? You get to see my ninja skills. I have a feeling if Moist or Gent play this at launch, they'll do a little bit better than I am. It seems like a Gent game to me. He's really good at these kind of like platforming games.
Well,
and yeah, Faithful, what you were asking earlier, all the levels are 10 seconds or less. Like, there's actually a timer at the top that just counts down.
Yeah. Before we announced the sequel, people kept telling us that like if you make a sequel, like you should call it 5-second Ninja. I was like, no, it needs to be 10 seconds. Or like people were saying,
any shorter the level doesn't work
there were
necessarily.
A lot of people saying we should call it 11-second Ninja. It's like, no, but that's easier. Like, that's a worse game.
No, that makes me think of like I think there's something about Mary's like, I'm gonna make 7-minute abs, like you can get your 7-minute abs, but I'm gonna make 8-minute abs. It's like, which one's actually better when we get to this? Like, if I could do it in less time, like, I don't know if I need that.
In the end, we just call it 10-second Ninja X because X is 10 in Roman numerals, and I was so sick of people saying it to me that I was like, I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna put 10 in the title twice.
I like it. Nah, it makes sense to me.
Moist is suggesting 2-second Ninja, and that just would not be fun.
No. This is why we don't let Moist suggest things. Oh god, I just nearly killed myself.
That's not good. I remember this was sort of quite a few months back. It was before we'd sort of decided on how, like, what sort of age rating and tone we wanted the game to have. And we got like, whenever you submit a game to different platforms, you get feedback. Some of it's just like post fixing and stuff. Some of it's like design feedback. And someone at Sony sent us a message and was like, yeah, like all the deaths need to be like super violent and horrible. And we were like, Like, who hurt you? Like, they were really, like, aggressive feedback. We're like, okay, great.
So, I think I read it right, that on the first one, you're fighting, like, Nazi robots, and now I'm fighting, like, pirate robots.
Yeah. People seem to think, or assume that this is because we were pressured into that, or, like, we chickened out or something. I still feel like the stuff we did in the first game was, like, fine. We made villains evil, like, that we didn't make those characters sympathetic or good at all. Truth be told, that kind of is why we changed it for this game. Like, turns out when you're writing Nazi robots, it's really, really difficult to make them interesting because, like, you can't.
They have to be unsympathetic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, unless we turn the whole game into just like wailing on these characters, which it just makes the whole game feel weirdly mean-spirited, even if it's against sort of like Nazi robots. It's like there's not a lot we can really do here. So like that's the thing. It's like it wasn't because we thought it was like politically incorrect or anything. It was just because it was boring, and we wanted to make a not boring game. So you were like, okay, new villain. We'll go with Captain Greatbeard, and we'll essentially make him Dr. Eggman having an identity crisis.
Yeah. I noticed that. Like, I was getting Dr. Eggman vibes the entire time from that when the opening sequence happened. Which, I don't know if there's a way I can re-show some of that stuff or not, but I guess you guys will have to buy the game to see.
Well, we've got a demo coming out soonish, I think.
Oh, awesome.
And we've written some original story stuff for that, but it's reusing some assets from the main game. So that vibe should still come across.
Very cool.
But yeah, it's I know I'm not sure how much I can say about comparisons to Sonic, but let's just say it's something that we definitely considered quite a bit when we were making the game. Really the core of it was just about sort of taking sort of typical platformer tropes and doing something a bit weird with it. Like, if you look at something like Super Meat Boy, Super Meat Boy is very much just like Mario through a different lens. Mm-hmm. And we, for probably quite obvious reasons, think of 10 Second Ninja as being a Super Meat Boy-esque thing. And we were kind of like, okay, if Sonic and Mario are kind of like different sides of the same coin, could we do something similar here where it's like, okay, Super Meat Boy is sort of Mario, only kind of dark and bloody and a bit kind of like gross. Could we do something where it's like, okay, it's a bit like this Sega mascot character, but we're taking it in a different direction, and it's more about like this existential crisis of a villain with an army of robots. Like what happens when that wisecracking main character doesn't talk back? Like what effect does that have on the nefarious villain? And like that was really, really interesting to us. It's just like, you probably would have an existential crisis if your whole life like revolved around this wisecracking, back-talking character who just suddenly wasn't talking. Because like the ninja was mute in the first game as well, and we were kind of like, well, that's kind of like a neat way to turn this on its head, is to keep the ninja mute and just kind of use that to subvert this kind of like this back and forth between a hero and villain.
Yeah, I actually thought that was pretty interesting that, at least as far as I've played, the ninjas not talk, so I was like, it's a cool reason for it.
Well, it's sort of like, I obviously won't go into it too much, because like, I think I'm watching the stream, like you're around the midpoint now, and it's like,
yeah.
I don't want to say too much about the latter half of the game, but like, we definitely wanted that to be something where like you start playing the game and because you're used to playing games where the main character doesn't talk, you don't even think anything of it. And it's only around the third time that people are like, this person isn't talking, that's really weird. That you kind of want the player to go like, okay, this isn't just like a gamey thing, like it's weird in the context of this world, and clearly no one else is comfortable with it.
Oh, I see what I'm doing wrong. For some reason, I didn't see that guy was electric.
This is one of the trickier levels.
Well, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I just did not see he was electric. That's me. It's like, now that I know that, it's like, oh, I know what I'm doing wrong.
I think this is one of my favorite levels in the game, but only because like it's the one that takes the longest to kind of get. But then once you get it, it's like super satisfying because it's got all these moving parts. The midpoint is when we kind of start to have a few more mechanics at play, all kind of bouncing off of each other. Like, I'd say that this area that you're in right now is the most sort of puzzle-focused one. And the sort of latter levels are much more focused on action as well as puzzles, but the puzzles aren't quite as tough.
Yeah, I noticed it definitely had a different feel once I got to this world a little bit. Because, like, until now, like, I hadn't really had to deal with using my shuriken or whatever as a, like, lever device. You know, it was like, okay, I'm just gonna use it to kill as many guys as I can to speed it up, and now it's like, oh, sometimes I need to throw that, you know, to like actually do something. How
you're interacting with the level entirely now, right? Like, and this was sort of quite a deliberate thing. I mean, the sort of the two areas in the middle of the game are kind of a lot more puzzle focused, just because we found that if we kept just ramping it up action-wise, by the time you got to the final world, it was really, really fatiguing, and it felt like you'd just been playing the same experience over and over and over again throughout the whole game. So I feel like it has kind of a nice arc. We have these two first areas where they're much more sort of action-focused, then the middle is a bit more puzzle-focused, and then the last two areas are very much a balancing of the two. And it just means that like each area kind of has its own feel, and you kind of have to think about the mechanics in that own sort of specific way.
I do like the fact that now I have finished in 10 seconds and pretty much had the lose thing come up, but you still gave me the win.
Yeah.
Because like I actually killed the guy, and I think I've died a lot where I've actually killed the guy. So I like that it actually like kind of goes in the player's favor a little bit. It's like, we'll give it to you. It's like, we'll round up.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, you're good enough.
That was like one of those little things that we changed since the first game. It just made like a massive difference. Where it's like, if you die but you've thrown a shuriken and the shuriken hits an enemy after you've died, then it doesn't matter that you died because you did take out everyone. So like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like just taking the win away from the player at that point just felt kind of cheap. And it's also the same with another one. There's like a few different instances. Oh, that's it. If I believe the timer runs down, but you've thrown a shuriken, it still counts. I think.
So you can actually finish the level in like 11 seconds.
But like only by like a few milliseconds, I think.
Oh, okay.
It's really hard to do. But yeah, like I believe this. Like the thing with the gameplay stuff is a lot of the gameplay stuff we implemented like a year ago, because the core gameplay mechanics all had to be there at that point, so that we knew what the game was as we built all the levels out. So I'm foggy on some of those details, which is kind of nice for me, because in some instances it means I can actually play the game how most people are going.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It's also cool that I'm still quite good at the game anyway, because like I'm actually really bad at games generally, especially platform games and especially puzzle games. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make this game, because it's like, as a developer, you're naturally good at the game that you're making.
Just because you played it as much as you have.
So it's sort of like, okay, if I make this game, everyone's gonna think I'm like amazing at platformers. I'm really not. I'm really bad.
See, that is like the greatest reason ever to make a game. You know, you're 18, you're like, man, I just want to be good at platformers, but no one thinks I am, so, like, I should have done that. Instead of just streaming on Twitch and everyone gets to see how bad I actually
I was
am.
bad in gym class.
It's like, that's a much better...
Made it a sport and just been like, oh, I'm amazing. You guys don't even know.
See, I like that concept. That's smart. I'm pretty sure there is. Someone's gonna invent, like, I guess Quidditch is already a thing, so they gotta come up with something weirder than that. This game's gonna make you rage facial. Like, I don't think it's made me rage yet, but then again, part of it is I know I'm not necessarily pro at it, and the thing I like about it is, like, I like this with all games, like, say, Super Meat Boy, is I know for a fact that when I screw up, like, 99.9% of the time, it's 100% my fault. Every once in a while, I'll still blame the game just because I want to, but I know it's actually me.
And that's, like, an important thing as well. It's, like, stuff like little touches, like, when you're at the start of the level, you can pan the camera around the level and see the whole thing. So it means that, like, the player has all of the information. Like... If they don't take an enemy into account, it's like that's
huge.
Entirely on them. Like that, it's all there. Which is good because it takes the heat off of us. Because like that sucks in games when you play them and the game screws up and you're punished for it. Like it's the worst. Especially in a game like this. And it was also important as well. Like there's when you're making a difficult game like this, there's this temptation to design it in such a way where when the player fails, you're quite harsh on them, or you kind of like taunt them or something. And people seem to think that like if you're making a difficult game, like that's like super good game design. You're just making them even more angry. But like we actually found it was way more satisfying to make the game really, really forgiving when that happens. So it's like if you fail, like restart instantly. Like if you die, then like yeah, you'll get a big red X on screen, but we're not gonna like relish your failure. Like we want to relish your success, right? Like. If you get like 3 stars, like we want that to feel really, really good. And if you absolutely screw up, like it should feel like it's no big deal. Because like players typically are hard enough on themselves anyway, without us as designers also just like getting
you don't really have to lump on them. Yeah, that's funny.
What I will say to Facial Lafleur is that. As someone who also doesn't like those kinds of games, I know a lot of other people who also aren't into those kinds of games, and 10 Second Ninja tends to work for people like us a bit more than you would expect. Like I'm not like I'm very aware that it might sound like I'm just saying that because I made it. I promise I wouldn't. Just because there'd been like no point, because like. You would know the second you picked up the game that I was lying. But, like, genuinely...
No, you can lie to Facial.
But it's just a thing where it's like, because you do restart so quick, and because you are only losing, like, tiny amounts of progress every time you fail, it's a bit more digestible to people who don't typically play games like this, I think. At least in my experience. Like, we've definitely had a few... Well, like, something we've noticed, is that like kids don't usually like difficult games quite so much, but whenever we've been showing this publicly at an event where there have been kids sort of below the age of 10, they've really got on with it, and that really surprised us. We thought it would be like sort of out of their reach.
Yeah, that would actually kind of surprise me a little bit.
But like
hearing you say that.
It was like a whole thing. Like we were showing at the Norwich Gaming Festival in April, and well, actually it might have been early, but that's just sort of like a free festival held in the middle of Norwich in the UK, and like we would have kids come with their parents and sort of like play the game, like, yeah, that's cool, and then they would come back throughout the day to keep playing it, and like we had kids come back multiple days, like dragging their parents back to the event so that they could play more of it. And I was like, we like super weren't expecting this. We were like, it was totally impressive.
That's awesome.
It was actually kind of annoying because the game wasn't out yet, and we had loads of parents asking us if they could buy the game for their kids.
Oh wow,
like,
yeah.
Damn it. It would have been a sale right there. Next year when the game's been out for a while.
Well, that's the nice part about releasing this is anybody who wants to kind of try it now can just pick it up on Steam and play, you know, the original 10-second
Yeah.
Ninja.
Although, like, I don't know, at this point you may as well wait. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 weeks, and this game's way better. But yeah, I mean, and you know, plus we have got a demo sort of on the way. So like you'll be able to see easy enough like if it's your kind of thing, and if it's not, like that's totally cool. I'm aware it's sort of it's like we're working in a niche genre here. It would be silly to think this was a game for everyone in the same way that it'd be silly to think like Dark Souls was a game for everyone. Like,
yeah, exactly. Like I'm terrible
Yeah.
at Dark Souls. I'll just straight up say it. I've tried it a couple times. I feel like I just haven't spent the time you need to learn the language.
yeah, I got
'Cause,
really
like-
into Dark Souls for about a month, and then I stopped because I can't play it now because I get too stressed. And I'm making the game like I've got enough stress in my life at the moment without adding on top of it, but playing Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff. Even though I own all of those games.
Yeah, I actually own each one because I keep trying to give it a chance, and I'm just like, maybe this will be the one. And like, they're all really well done. It's just like, I feel like when I'm talking to someone, they're speaking another language, and like, I don't just personally want to take the time to learn what they're saying, because like they'll just say stuff, and I'm like, I have no idea what that means. It just doesn't feel
I think as
natural
well with
to me.
difficult games, like people get a bit needlessly obsessive about maintaining like the purity of this difficult experience. Like I know there's a lot of people who say like you absolutely cannot summon if you're playing Dark Souls. Summoning other players is like cheating, or like, and it's that whole like get good mentality, right?
Yeah, well, one of the guys on our stream always complains whenever someone uses Estus flasks or whatever in the middle of fighting. He's like, you can't do that, that's cheating. And I'm like, why not? If it's in the game, I'm gonna use it. I'm not good.
Yeah. And like that should be totally fair enough. Yeah, I mean, especially in something like it's like in Dark Souls, when I played it through, it didn't really click with me until I'd watched like a lot of lore videos just because I thought the lore was really interesting, even if I didn't like the game yet. And that was enough to sort of make me go like start playing the game and go like, oh okay, like I know this place, like I know about the people who have been here and the effect this has on the world, and that was enough to sort of like anchor me into it. And then like the first few bosses in Dark Souls, like just googling them and finding that there were exploits and that like there are like surefire ways to beat pretty much every single boss in the game. Like if you do like a tiny bit of googling, like you can really like modify the difficulty of Dark Souls and Bloodborne and stuff to quite a large degree. And it's cool. Like it reminds me of like reading like cheat books that you'd used to get with game magazines and stuff.
Yeah,
it kind of
for
brings
sure.
that culture back, and I miss that culture. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
And you know that's part of 10-second Ninja X as well, right? Like people discussing different routes and stuff. Like I love that. I think it's a
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because one of the things we did when we were pretty young as a site is we actually basically took pictures of every single image in a Super Meat Boy level because they didn't have this camera mode you have right here, and we like pasted them together. And when we originally sent that to Team Meat, they were like, "Holy crap! This is like a Nintendo,
Yeah.
you know." World magazine spread now. They're like, this is incredible, because like we're trying to show people the pass to get to all the different bandages or whatever, and that was probably the most traffic we've ever seen, you know, for a young site to suddenly end up with like 3 million views on that was just nuts. It's a little crazy, but like people love that type of, you know, just experience. And Facial, I wanted to answer your question. The stars do not matter or the ninja stars do not matter for getting the 3 stars. It's just the time.
Yeah, the stars at the top are just basically you have 3 shurikens a level, just so it kind of limits it, just to stop you from just throwing stars at every single enemy instead of slashing them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, otherwise I don't think I would never slash, to be perfectly
Yeah,
honest.
like it's just like a constraint, and especially in the later levels you come across more situations where it's like, okay, by the time I get to this part of the level, I'm only going to have 1 shuriken left. So is it more efficient time-wise to throw it here, or to throw it here, or to hit this guy up here? And it just sort of means that you're you're thinking about the level spatially in a different way, and it kind of creates a mini challenge for you to solve. Which is what the game's all about. It's all about sort of like managing. Essentially, it's about like systems and managing resources, like almost as much as like a strategy game is, but presented in a very kind of basic, straightforward, sort of a bit more accessible way. But like I'm a big systems nut. It's one of the reasons I like Dark Souls. It's why I'm a big fan of games like Dishonored. Like I really like systems-heavy games, or games not even systems-heavy games, but games that have a big focus on systems and mechanics interacting with each other in interesting ways. And 10 Second Ninja, I feel like, is a traditional platformer with that kind of methodology behind it. Not with the same amount of depth as something like Spelunky, but like it's definitely there. I think the DNA of those games that I just mentioned that I really like is sort of like there in a kind of abstract way.
I think it's definitely evident just in the way that, like you said, like you've got to think it through. It's like, okay, I know for a fact I have to use one of these shurikens on like the last guy. So it's like, okay, I have 2 to work with, and it's like, how am I going to be able to save the most time? I think that's definitely just really cool, and it works really fluid. And like, I just 3-starred 2 levels in a row right here, and it just like, when you get it done right, it just looks good. Like, your runs just look so much better.
We put so much work into that.
Yeah.
Also, it should hopefully be evident to people that I'm kind of a 90s kid, and I grew up playing Crash Bandicoot and stuff, and I think the hub reflects that, sort of.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Like, I was always a big fan of these kind of, like, nefarious guns. Like, nefarious is always the right word that comes to mind whenever I think about, like, platformer versions and stuff, is it's not just, like twisted or evil or gritty or anything. It's like, they're nefarious, they're mustache twirling, and that's great. It's like my favourite thing. It's like villains who enjoy being evil, or like understand that that's their role. As well as I'm a big fan of like Crash Bandicoot's whole structure, where they have these different areas, and it's very apparent what you need to do in the level to fulfill certain criteria to get 100% and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of games that do that and make that all really, really clear.
Yeah, for sure. I like a lot of the just like simple stuff that you guys have done with just the way some of these like almost like Easter eggy type things are just really kind of cool. Like some of the secret achievements and whatnot that I already popped off stream, so I'm not gonna spoil them for anybody. But they're just really kind of neat.
Yeah, well, like I missed this stuff. Weirdly, like I was playing.
Well, here's one of them.
Like I was replaying the first Harry Potter game on PC. It was a really weird experience because it's sort of there's a lot of DNA of like Spyro and stuff in that, which you like you sort of wouldn't expect. Sorry, I really like that start screen.
Yeah, me too. That's what I was talking about. I wasn't expecting that to show up because I was like, man, that's just it's just cool. Like that start screen is just great.
Well, it sort of comes out of left field as well, right? It's just like a nice way of being like, okay, we're gonna like just when the player gets comfortable with the structure, we kind of want to play with that and go a bit weird with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was weirdly when I was playing Harry Potter on PC that I was sort of like, I'm such a British guy, but but I was like sort of walking around these levels and I was remembering all these secret areas that I found when I was like 8 years old, by like casting spells on mirrors and stuff like that. I was kind of like, man, like I just love this stuff, and games have kind of swapped that out for like Easter eggs that are more like pop culture references and stuff. And I really miss like level design secrets, like where you go somewhere, like you see an area of a game and go like, I bet the designer doesn't think I'll be able to get there, and then you do it and you realize that the designer did think you were going to get there. And they've left something for you
and they planned ahead.
Like it's just like a really cool feeling, and it leads to environments that feel really memorable, I think. And it adds a lot of character to a game. So yeah, we were very keen when we were working on this game, like, you know what, let's just go like full even though it's a 2D platformer, like we use a lot of elements from like 3D platformers, like Rachel pointed out, like it's sort of like Banjo-Kazooie-esque, and that's like a very deliberate thing. The sound design especially is like our sound designers are a big fan of what's his name? Is it Kurt Granville? Who did like a lot of the sound on Banjo-Kazooie. Who me and the sound designer actually bumped into very, very briefly at GDC, and our sound guy was really, really happy.
Yeah, I bet. That's always kind of cool.
That was a weird GDC trip, because we also hung out in that was a weird GDC trip. We randomly ended up hanging out playing Mount Your Friends in Danny Petrovsky's hotel room, and Danny did the music for Super Meat Boy and Cannibalts and stuff like that. So like obviously he's our idol. And like he was aware of 10 Second Ninja and stuff like that. Like we were there just through mutual friends. I remember that like being a really cool moment where we're like, oh my god, he knows the game. Oh dear god, this is amazing. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of DNA of that. There's like a lot of Danny stuff, sort of Danny inspired stuff in this game. There's a lot of Banjo-Kazooie inspired stuff in the game. When it comes to stuff like voice acting as well, like I mean, we don't have like proper voice acting, it's just like grunts and stuff, but like inspirations from Banjo-Kazooie and like Crash Bandicoot and all that stuff, like even like if like not necessarily great 3D platformers. I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of problems with Crash Bandicoot, but like you can't deny that the theme in Crash Bandicoot's amazing, and like the characters are amazing and like really vividly drawn.
That's a really cool level, even though I did terrible at it.
I like this level.
Yeah, I like the way that like you guys have been adding in basically one mechanic almost each world, and then they just keep combining a little bit to make some more nuanced stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's just always nice. So it's like the first one or whatever, you have the guys with the extra shield, you gotta hit twice, and then eventually you get the electric dudes, then you get the moving platforms, which kind of get a little crazy. And now you got these reflector beams.
Yeah, and then it puts you in a cool position as well, where it's like, hey, I mean, like you saw in this level, where it's like, hey, these two blocks are next to each other, and you can make the shuriken rebound back off of this reflector shield thing. So you can basically create a trampoline.
Yeah.
And like those little lessons are really, really cool, and that means that later on in the game, when we have even more mechanics, we can kind of reference that lesson again and be like, okay, remember the level where you created that trampoline? Like, okay, now you can do that again, but you have to deal with this enemy who's going to absorb your shuriken before that can happen, so how are you going to deal with that? And that's like the cool bit. Like, it's also the most difficult part of the level design to me, that every single level needs to have its own unique hook, and that's really, really difficult to do.
I'd imagine.
I mean, like, it's 16 new levels we made, and like, I think the levels, the new 10 Second Ninja X levels are quite a bit better than the original game's levels, although they're both in the game, so you can see for yourself. But like, designing them and making sure that each one had its own thing, like its own challenge to overcome, or its own sort of its own facet to a mechanic that we'd introduced, was really, really tough, but really, really rewarding. And I think it means that each level's a bit more memorable. Like, I feel like if we were to make levels that didn't have that same puzzle focus and were much more focused on like just getting through fast, for a really straightforward route, I feel like most of the levels would just feel like fluff, and wouldn't be quite as satisfying. Like, I really like having levels that have their own things going on.
Yeah, I think it's definitely really cool, because like I like games that don't have to hold my hand per se, but they can still like teach me. So it's like, okay, I'm learning as I go, and it's definitely a nice feeling. But was there anything we haven't covered that you'd like to tell people? This actually went a lot faster than I was expecting, because like I just looked and I'm like, holy crap, I've already had you here for an hour.
That's a good thing.
That's a good feeling,
You don't
yeah.
feel like it's been 3 hours or something.
No, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Not off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, I guess sort of reiterate, game's coming out July 19th. Xbox One, PS4, PlayStation Vita, Steam, specifically Steam for PC, should have news about the demo coming soon. We've actually got a really cool thing to do with the demo that I can't talk about yet, but I'm quite excited by. Yeah, I hope people check it out and enjoy it, because like I had mixed feelings on the first game, truth be told, but I sincerely feel like 10 Second Ninja X is like a really great game, and I'm really excited for people to play it, because like I don't have doubts about it. I think it's I don't know. I think people are just gonna have a really good time with it. I'm really excited.
What were some of the main things you were excited that you were able to do with this one that you weren't able to do with the last one? Just one last question.
So I feel like the bigger problems with the last one were it wasn't polished enough. It was very rough around the edges. The story was rubbish because of the whole Nazi robot thing. Like, just because we couldn't do anything with it, it just made it was just boring. I felt like structurally it had some problems because it was very much just like level, and I feel like that was just boring. And also, there just wasn't really enough of it. Like, the levels were a lot shorter in the first game, and I mean, it sounds like I'm being funny. Like, they were 10 seconds long, but they were just smaller levels.
I didn't even catch that at first. Yeah.
But yeah, they were just like smaller levels. So like the game was quite easy to get through the game in like 45 minutes, and I felt like this is a much more substantial experience. Like I feel like we like properly earned the price tag, which is £8 and $10. Who knows at this point?
I think I believe that's what I saw.
I don't even know at this point because the pound's fluctuating so
much.
But yeah, like I just feel like it's a much more substantial experience. I feel like it's just a much more polished experience. I feel like it's a much more structurally sound experience. And there's just more of it. You know, this isn't even like we've got like 2 mini games in it. You can like unlock collectibles in the hub, and once you like get all of the collectibles, you unlock like a whole new game.
Yeah, I noticed that. I've got a few up
which
here
is actually
already.
a sequel to a game that we made for. We made a game 3 years ago. Like all the team members before we formed this 4 Second Interactive, we all worked on a game called Nanageddon for PS Mobile, which was like. I'm not trying to sort of toot my own horn here too much, but it was generally considered to be like one of the best PS Mobile games. Obviously, it's like it was quite a small platform, but like it was quite well received, and you know, PS Mobile just kind of disappeared a couple of years back. They just sort of took it down. So as a result, like you can't get Nanageddon anymore, and this was our opportunity to go like, okay, let's make a Nanageddon sequel and put it in 10 Second Ninja X, like. Let's just maintain the legacy of that. So we've got closure on 10 Second Ninja now. We feel like we made a really good 10 Second Ninja game. We've made a really good Nanageddon game. They're both there. And now we can move on and do something different.
So what kind of space would you want to go into next? Do you have any clue? Like any vague like, oh man, I've always wanted to do this type of game.
Ideas of what we're doing next. We have had ideas for a while. More than ideas. We've done like some serious production work on the next thing.
Oh, awesome.
But yeah, without sort of giving the game away, so to speak.
Yeah.
It carries on in that thread of being very systems focused. Sort of like I was saying earlier, like we really wanted to go like, okay, let's have a broad range of mechanics and things all interacting together. We're using procedural generation, I'll say that. Just because we've done 2 games back to back now with like handcrafted levels, and we kind of want to do procedural generation just for like get extra pace. And it's 3D, which has been a nice change as well.
That's
cool. It wasn't supposed to be 3D. It was
so basically completely the opposite.
Pardon?
So almost completely the opposite in that space, you know, not the handcrafted levels, not the 2D.
I feel like when people
kind of getting to experience different things on
Yeah,
your
like
end.
I mean, we're working in a different genre altogether, but I know. I thought it's one of these things where like when we actually announce it, people will at first be like, "Oh, this is really different," and then once they start seeing more of it, they'll see traces of the 10-second Ninja DNA in it.
Yeah,
But definitely not in the same format that it takes in 10-second Ninja.
that's
Sorry for being so
awesome.
cryptic.
No, I understand. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap up. What's up, Moist Princess and Pixel Panda? Uh, I'm gonna hop off. Zero J Hootie's gonna take over. I just wanted to thank Dan again for hanging out with us. I'm gonna post this on xblafans.com and on YouTube. So if you guys want to see the entire interview, if you missed part of it, you guys can check it out there, and that'll be up probably tomorrow morning. So there'll be some good stuff for you guys there. Thanks again for hanging out with us. Just gonna let you, if you can, off the top of your head, just when it comes out again, and $10, I believe we said £8, $10, somewhere around that.
Out July 19th.
July 19th, perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you.